now with the summer era on a weekly basis, which is tough work for people who are just volunteers, effectively. So yeah, and it does seem good that there's going to be a consistent standard applied to when stats are talked about at the Rugby League World Cup coming up at the end of the year. So well done, good work on that, Neil. I know he's been working really hard on it, as have some of the other guys at the RLRKC. A couple of bits of sad news then, both from Hull, both sides of Hull. So first of all, Hull FC legend Mick Crane, a member of the club's Hall of Fame, has died. Forward Crane, who twice won the Challenge Cup, first with Leeds in 1978 and then with Hull in the 1982 final, also won one Great Britain cap. Hull FC called Crane, who scored 98 tries in 359 appearances over two spells, one of the greatest to pull on the black and white shirt. He also played for Leeds and Hull KR in the late 70s before rejoining Hull in 1981. And on the other side of things, Zuck Emma. So tributes have been paid to Emma following the untimely passing of the popular former Hull KR forward. Emma, known universally as Zuck, was born in Beverley to Nigerian parents in 1963. Died at the age of 58 after a fight with cancer, really sad, rare cancer that he's been battling for a few years. He played 233 games for the Robins and scored 18 tries and won the Championship, League Cup and Yorkshire Cup with Hull KR. Robins chairman Neil Hudgell tweeted, "R.I.P. Zuck, a champion player from my youth, but much more than that, a champion man." So tributes to both legends there on either side of Hull. I guess for yourself, will you have vague memories of Mick Crane from his second spell at Hull in your very formative years, or probably a player who just preceded your time, but probably one you've heard a lot about?
Yeah, I think 89 was my first season, so just missing out. But yeah, heard a lot about him. It was funny because at the game there was sort of a whistle. It was just starting to be like, oh, Mick Crane's died, but then there was nothing. You couldn't quite find a definite thing that he had.
Yeah.
But Zuck, one of his sons plays for one of the Scala teams, maybe under 11s or something. He's not very old because there was a big fundraiser last season where the Scala team were actually going around all the amateur clubs in the local league to do a fundraiser. So yeah, very sad.
Yeah, very sad news there. Both of them obviously leaving families, loved ones behind. Hopefully everyone gets behind those people, and rest in peace to both Mick Crane and Zuck Emma. If people want to get in touch and get involved with the show, on social media it's at Super League Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or facebook.com/Super League Pod. You can email superleaguepod@gmail.com like Neil did if you've got something longer to say to us. Visit superleaguepod.com to get the info on each episode and links to the Google Forms for your fan views that we'll share and discuss on the show. And don't forget to subscribe in whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, and leave a rating and review if you can. And we'll now move on to the meat of the show, the Super League match reviews, which I promise to be politics free. Okay, it was round 17 of the Super League this weekend just gone, and the first game to talk about was the televised game on Friday night, Castleford versus Huddersfield. It was 20 points to 6 to Castleford at half time, with the home team starting strongly in the first half, and then they finished 26 points to 18 winners, with Huddersfield getting a couple of late tries to make it look a bit nicer for them on that scoreboard. 5,672 was the crowd. Jack Smith was the referee. In terms of the team stats, Huddersfield made more metres, although Cass made ground at a better average gain and made one more break. Cass were able to overcome the wrong end of the penalty count and a sub 90% team tackle success rate to get the win. What about the individuals?
So for Cass, Greg Eden made 157 metres. Jake Truman with 1 try, 2 try assists, 132 metres. Jake Mammer with 1 try, 118 metres and 3 offloads. Beretta Farema with 105 metres. In terms of Huddersfield, it was Innes Senior with 7 tackle busts and 180 metres. Jerry McGilvray with 1 try, 129 metres. Tui Lolohea with 1 try assist, 14 tackle busts and 126 metres. And Mike Lawrence with 126 metres.
Good stuff. David Hunter with his loyalty is blind point of view got in touch. We know how he still loves Kenny Edwards, no matter what sort of moral gaps the man might have had in his checkered history. David said, with some vintage Kenny Edwards, Cass started on fire. Then, when it turned, their defence was solid. Giants against the run of play go 80 metres in a set, and Jerry with a brilliant finish. Huddersfield needed to be the first to score in the second, but it was Edwards again that stepped up for Cass and sent Mamo over. Solid to the end and deserved their win.
Fatboy Rob got in touch and said not even the new signings of Toby King and Jack Smith could stop the 11 men league kissing juggernaut Cass. To be fair to Huddersfield, they looked good for the first 15 minutes, but the defence held up. Truman and Richardson both played well and had a hand in everything. A much improved Alfort's brace. It was a shame we conceded a couple of late tries, but eventually the sticks against take on their toll. Bring on Leeds. Coif.
Yep. Mark said, Cass solid in defence for a couple of weeks in a row for the first time this season. Thought it was good how they rushed Russell every time he got the ball, as I don't think Price is that good yet. All he does is step, and after once it gets red every time. Thought the ref didn't have the best game, seemed to be quite a few obstructions missed and some strange decisions.
Smithy says, we came into that with the attitude we'd won before the game had started, which is poor from us. We seem to be so good offensively at home and look clueless away unless it's against the half-injured KR team. Hopefully Watto can give them a kicking so we can ruin Salford's final at Magic.
And St. David said, great line defence from the Tigers, more creative with the ball and took their chances. Well, yeah, the 6 again count did go heavily against Cass, but that was based on Cass's tactics, and I think it was refereed quite correctly. That element of the game, to be perfectly honest, but that's not taking anything away from what Cass did. Shall we start with Truman?
Yeah.
He scored a high quality try, and didn't he? His break that. I mean, Tui Lolohea has to be questioned for his part in it, but Truman in that first half had a big role in the 2 early scores that were against the run of play. I thought probably the best he's played in at least 18 months. So a real shame for Cass of the double blow, really. One of them we didn't know because that injury he picked up looked slightly innocuous, but he's out for the rest of the season after suffering an ACL injury, which is a big shame for him and Castleford's push for the higher playoff spots. And it's been confirmed what Hull FC said was the worst kept secret, because Sky Sports kept banging on about it for the last month, that Hull FC have confirmed the signing of Castleford Tigers halfback Jake Truman on a 3-year deal from 2023. So I guess first of all, what did you make of Truman's performance? Because I thought he was good. Then what do you make of him coming to your black and whites?
So I thought he had an excellent game, and at that point I was thinking, yeah, all right. Because he's one of those players that I've never really... Like, he's okay. I think he came into the... he started playing and, he was going to be the next great thing. And then I felt he really plateaued a lot and maybe didn't kick on at all. And obviously he had that injury as well, didn't he?
Yeah, the back injury last year really, I think, hurt his progress. You're right. He showed great promise in some performances, but then possibly hasn't yet established himself as a consistently dominant player. But he's still quite young, isn't he?
Yeah, it felt like a typical Hull FC signing of meh. That was kind of my feeling, and I was holding on to the fact that Joshua had been told that there is no way he is signing. He's going to the NRL. So. But then I saw him play on Friday and I was like, actually,
Yeah.
If we get this Jake treatment, I'll be quite happy.
Yeah, best is played for a while, so if that's if his next performance is going to be for your team, if he plays with that sort of form, then you've got to be pleased, I suppose.
Yeah.
On this game, all of the first half, it felt like Huddersfield had most of the possession, most of the territory, even though Cass were really way more clinical with the opportunities they had or created. But one thing as well is they never let Huddersfield get time and space, I didn't think, to make their possession and territory count. And you've got to credit Cass's defence and their tactics for that. Someone mentioned the Jerry try, didn't they? That was an incredible finish, wasn't it? Like how he got that down without going into touch in such a small space was fantastic. But that try was the only try the Giants scored in that first half, even though they seemed to have most of the field position and possession. It was an off-the-cuff try on a last tackle play with a really tight, like last inch of the field finish, and that was all they managed to do. That shows just how well Cass defended, I think, and had the tactics right.
Yeah, so the main note that I made was that, to me, the game seemed to be summed up in just, I think it was something like the 71st minute, when McQueen couldn't score. It felt like it was harder for him not to score than it was to score, and then there was the pass which led to the knock-on as a result of the Cass defence. But it felt like that was kind of the story of the match, that Huddersfield might have had the possession and the position at times, but they just couldn't score, and made errors in those positions. And yes, is that as a result of their poor player? Is it a result of Cass's great defence? Is it a result of both? And I think but that to me just sort of seemed to sum up the game.
Yeah, you're right. That getting in the faces and forcing errors. Cass getting in Huddersfield's faces and forcing errors was part of it, I think. I mean, Mark made an astute point about how they, rushed Russell and Price for kind of time and space, and I think it was part of a two-pronged part of the tactics, because when they did the interview with the assistant coach just before half-time, it's, what's his name? Who was your coach?
Andy Last.
Andy Last, that was it. Basically said the main objective was to slow things down so that Levi didn't have much of an impact on the game, and they really did do that by slowing down the ruck so Levi couldn't jump out quickly and make things happen from that. And then similarly, Cass put a lot of energy into closing down Russell and Price with really fast line speed, and it was forcing either plays to break down or errors to be made by Huddersfield. They never really, as a result of that, got Lola here the ball in space at all, other than that kick for Jerry's try. So what they did is they slowed any set plays or rucks down as much as they possibly could, Castleford, and that's why they gave away 6 or 7 6-agains in the game, I think. And we're on the wrong end of the penalty count and stuff. And also, it was really starting to grate on me, actually, the nonsense, how long they were delaying getting into scrums, Kenny Edwards being the main culprit of that. But that was all to disrupt any sort of momentum that Huddersfield could generate getting into their structure, to then free up that sort of the kind of the couple of instinct players they've got in there. I thought it worked incredibly well, and no one stood out individually in the second half necessarily for me for Castleford. It was just a really good sticking to the tactics they've been sent out with performance by them. Radford called it right. It might not have always been like fun to watch necessarily, but it was an interesting example of disrupting this Huddersfield side, which you can do, I guess, when you're at home and you've got the crowd behind you as well to help with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just going back to one thing you were saying about sort of those flair players not getting the chance. I mean, I think that is classic description of Will Price, isn't it? I don't think he is he is a flair player. I don't know how much he can play to sort of a set pattern. And if you're getting in his face and not allowing him that space to, make those first few meters, then he's not going to achieve anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and similarly, like when Russell tries to control things, if you're in his face, he can't set things up to get the ball to